You coined the term circadian advantage back when you were studying with the MLB
Yeah,
teams.
really.
What is that term? What is the circadian advantage?
Yeah, it's basically how it's your sport advantage based upon how aligned with your current time zone you are.
Mm,
So if the New York Yankees come to LA and play the Dodgers for a few days and they fly up to Seattle to play the Mariners a couple days and they head back down to play the Padres before they go back to New York, and the Padres have been playing Baltimore and they went down to Atlanta. And the Padres flew home on Tuesday night from Atlanta, having been on the East Coast for about a week. And the Yankees are coming down from Seattle then you would think, oh, the Padres have the home field advantage, which they do. But they're also wildly misaligned from the Pacific time zone because they've been hanging out on the East Coast for a long time. The Yankees, you would think, "Oh, they're screwed up because they're all the way from New York." No, but they are from New York, but they've been on the West Coast for the last week, so they're perfectly aligned to Pacific Coast time versus the Yankees. So even though the Padres have the home field advantage, the Yankees have the circadian advantage. And usually
mm.
throughout a season, the home team does, or at least it's neutral. But every now and then you find these instances where the home team is very misaligned and the visiting team is very aligned, and that's where you get these discrepancies in circadian advantage, and those are the games to bet on.
I mean, with the way these major sports teams' schedules are, obviously they don't have any control over that, and there's not much they can do about that. When you did bring that up to the MLB, were there any steps taken that the individual teams and players did to try to mitigate that?
No, no, I don't think MLB cares. Although when you look at the NBA, they they have definitely done a lot of work around trying to find the most egregious situations and do some things with the schedule to mitigate them. In fact, every at the beginning of every NBA season, which is generally it always happens when I'm on vacation. When my kids were younger, I'd always be on vacation somewhere with our kids because it always happens in the summer. And I get this urgent email when I'm in the Galapagos Islands from teams saying the schedule's out. We have 24 hours to tell the league, okay, we don't like this game. So I would have to sit there and, wherever you were and go through the whole schedule and also try to go through the schedules of the opposing teams, which is really made Chat GPT has made a whole lot easier.
Mm,
Where you can grind out this incredible, like, I need to know where the Oklahoma City Thunder, what their worst disadvantages are. But then I also need to pair it with what's the team that they're playing on Tuesday night? What have they been up to leading up to that game? And and then we can write the league and say these 3 games we want moved. And they either listen to the team or they don't. More often than not, they don't. And then you're left with that schedule. And so then my job becomes, okay, this is what we've got. How do we make the most of it for your team, including you're flying to Korea to play the first 2 games of the season and they're meaningful. Or in the NBA's case, you're flying to Mumbai and you're playing an exhibition game or 2 that are not meaningful. How are we gonna, make that game disappear? Or how do we make your team optimized to play, win, and then get back to, Arizona to get, back in the swing of spring training without your players getting sick or injured kind of thing. So yeah, it's always never a dull moment. And with the leagues getting more international, it's becoming even more a lot more opportunities for those kinds of interventions, which I find fun. They're kind of a challenge. It's like a mental puzzle. And hey,
mm,
you're gonna play 2 games. That means you're gonna have 2 starting pitchers. Do the other starting pitchers on your roster even have to go?
mm.
Or would you bring them because what if one got sick? Or what about there's a lot of times there's media requirements. Like they're not gonna play, but the the Major League Baseball stipulates that all of your players have to be available to the Korean media for interviews and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of little things. You're traveling people at different times or sending people back early and trying to get them, okay, have this person, sleeping on a completely different schedule than everybody else. It's that kind of stuff. And then you got to get like team and player buy-in, which is often like the team's like, "Yes, we agree and it's legal," but the player's like, "I don't wanna leave my friends because if I leave and go home early, we don't get to go out Friday night in, like, downtown Korea," whatever, like, so
Yeah.
it's, one battle after another.
I mean, obviously, it's important to the teams if they're going through all of this stuff and have you involved in everything, but what are some of the advantages to prioritizing your sleep in professional sport and the disadvantages for those that don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, to me, it's almost like, what is the advantage of prioritizing hydration or weight training or having coaches instruct you. Like, like it I think we've gotten to the point now, maybe when I got started and all this stuff, it was kind of fringy and weird, but I think that I think it's something that everybody has to do that you've got to I mean, it makes no sense to invest millions and millions of dollars in a player and not pay attention to a third of the time that they're in your I mean, and they pay attention to everything. If you walk into a training center of any major league baseball, NBA organization, I mean, the food is incredible. It's like I just, anytime like if you're looking for me, if you're in a professional sports organization and like, "Where'd Chris guy? I've gotta ask him some questions. There's a player here wants to see him." I'm probably back in the dining center, like, eating some more of the risotto and, like, crab cakes that they've put together. I mean, there's amazing so, it's they're investing in chefs and dietitians and all this stuff that are on site, and then, the workout facilities, the training facilities are incredible and technologically completely out there. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense for they come in for their meal and their practice and their, you know, physical therapists work on them and massage therapists work on them, and they're in the cold pool and the different things, and the one team had automatic masseuses that were custom like a robotic massage. I mean, it was
Mm,
incredible. And then, "Okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Just go do whatever the hell you wanna do for the next 10 hours," with no guidance or plan or education. So I think that, the days of, well, first into the office and that's just for the players, staff too. Like, I mean, I think that whenever I leave an organization, I'm way more worried about the staff than I am the players. Players are like, "Okay, we're going home now." Staff's not going anywhere. They're meeting about the injuries of this player. They're planning this thing out. They're breaking this down. They're getting ready for the season. I mean, nobody's going. Sometimes when I'm out with Cleveland. I spend usually about 5 or 6 days with the Cleveland Guardians at made spring training, and I'm there by myself. Nobody comes with me. I'm just kinda sitting around, and, so after the end of the day, I'm in this little office they'll set up for me, and, I see the last player and things are kinda slowing down in the I'll just stay there and work. Again, I've got, like, really good snacks down the hall, little automatic latte machine, and so I'd much rather be there than, like, some hotel room or something like that, and it's amazing to me how long people stay there, and
mhm.
then they're there before I get there the next morning at 6 AM. So I think that this is just a standard thing now. They're just trying to take it to the highest level they can, which, I kind of already see in my own career, like, I can see in the future of people doing what I do so much better than I do, like taking it to crazy levels, like, and so that's really exciting that I kind of, in a weird way, look forward to being replaced, like,
Yeah.
yeah, we used to use this guy, Dr. Winter, and he was pretty good, but he's old school, and now we got this, person who's really, I don't know who that person will be, but I'm sure there are tons of them out there.
Well, what when you say, like, you're talking to these players, what are you talking about? Like, you just telling them educating them on how to optimize their sleep, or what does that entail?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things, and that's really changed over the years too. And and that's, um, I had a executive for one of the teams sit down and talk to me, and he said, I really think you have a good way with the players. Um, I said, "Well, that's very nice of you to say." I said, "Number 1, I'm really interested in their sleep and them doing well, and number 2, I'm not a huge sports fan."
Mm,
So, I think, I always feel like teams can sort of smell that fanboy or fangirl like a fart in a car, or like, "Why are you here?" And one of the interesting things about the staffs of these organizations, they're not either. Like, if you're in it for the free t-shirts and, like, being able to, like, hang out with that famous sports guy or woman, you're not gonna last very long. Like, you really have to like the work, and I genuinely am interested in, like, meeting them and, like, kind of finding out what they know and don't know, and kinda meet them at their own needs. Like, and that's what's really different now is that when you go see these teams, there's like a 17-year-old drafted out of the Dominican Republic who's like, "I've got a Whoop band. Can I show you my data?" And you're like, "Sure." So, like, so you don't really have to push too hard, because I think that through social media and things of that nature, the message of sleep is really important is caught on.
mhm,
And it has nothing to do with me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was Tom Brady saying, "I think sleep's really important," and LeBron James saying, "I never skimp on sleep." And so all these kids growing up who wanted to be the next Tom Brady or LeBron James, had their poster up in their bedroom, are definitely hearing them say these kinds of things. And so when they sit down with the organization and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Chris. I've been doing this for a long time. I've worked for all these different teams. I'm here just to help you with sleep. Do you have any questions before we get started?" That everybody has questions before we get started now. So the
mhm.
buy-in is much easier versus I think the very first time I did a lecture in front of a whole bunch of sports teams, might have been, well, one of the it was not the first. The first NBA team I ever worked for was the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it was Kevin Durant's rookie year, and as I was talking to the team, I made a little joke and people laughed, and then people kept laughing and talking, and it just they never got quiet again. And then Kevin Durant stood up, I think as a rookie. He had just finished his rookie season, I think, and he said, "Guys, get quiet. This stuff's pretty important." And then he looked at me and said, "Go on." And he sat down. And number one, I thought that was interesting as the youngest player on the team that he was
Mhm.
telling people, "Shut up." I mean, he was like 1 year out of the University of Texas, I think. But it's that kind of attitude is very common now. So, so it looks like a lot of things. It's how do we function better as a team as it relates to sleep, like travel and how we can manage those things and schedules and when to practice, when not to practice. Hey, maybe after these 3 days of being on the road and coming back, let's cancel that practice the next day. And it's funny because there is sort of this weird push and pull between we went on the road and we lost 3 out of 4 brutally, so the response is we gotta get back home and practice. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta get those batting tees out and practice because apparently somewhere along the second leg of our flight out to Arizona, our team forgot how to hit the baseball, and that's why we lost. So we need to practice and then my little insignificant voice is, maybe y'all should like just y'all been traveling pretty hard here, just give them a break. Let them be with their girlfriends and kids and Xboxes or whatever they're what I just let them just relax and
Yeah.
come in and maybe get after it the next day. So that's to me, that's sort of the frontier we're at right now, which is we believe in sleep. And Chris, I believe you're a real doctor because I think probably half the teams I worked for a long, long time ago are like a real doctor, like a energy crystal healer doctor kind of thing, you know? No, I went to medical school. I got a little certificate right here somewhere I can show you. So I think now the frontier is we accept it, but where is it on the hierarchy of important things in sports? We think it's 23rd. Dr. Winter thinks it's number one, you know, kind of like
Yeah.
so maybe water is more important, but just barely. So anyway, so that's kind of where we're at right now is you believe it, and I believe you believe it, but how much do you believe it, and how much are you willing to say as a coach? Because I'm sure it looks pretty weird to the public who knows everything about these teams. Wow, they really shit the bed on in that last, 5 games, and, they've come back home and they've taken the day off. I mean, that sounds like the kind of thing that gets a coach fired to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you've really gotta have some belief in Dr. Winter, I think, to make it all work. But I think that the truly innovative, smart teams do. I've got this little slide I put up of all the teams I work for or have worked for in the past. So there's some good teams, man. Like NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder, World Series participants Dodgers and Blue Jays. I mean, just one after another. And look at what the Cleveland Guardians did this year. They were 15 games out and they roared back at the end of the season, which is where sleep matters, right? Everybody can
Mhm.
look good at the first few games of the season. How do you look at the end of the season? That's good sleep. And they roared back and won their division. So, and I always say it's all my fault, which it's not. That's my joke. It's not my fault. It's using somebody to help you with your sleep who knows what the fuck they're doing. And there's a lot of people out there who do not know. I'm always like, oh, I'm not gonna, the Bayshore whatevers have announced they're working with the sleep specialist. Well, that's cool. Let me see who it is. Never heard of this person before. I look them up. They like graduated with a business degree. I'm like, okay, well, that'll work out well for them. So, so to me, but so it's a marker. If you're working with Sherry Ma from Stanford, oh, well, shit. I mean, just you doing that, even if Sherry gives you terrible information, which she wouldn't, just the fact that you're thinking, okay, let's get a real, super smart sleep person into our organization. I think the Seattle Seahawks with her.
Mm.
Okay, am I surprised the Seahawks beat the hell out of the Patriots? No, I'm not at all because Sherry knows what she's doing, and I think it's just gonna be, like, ubiquitous in the future. It's like Gatorade in your workout area and a sleep doctor cruising around telling you, some things.
Real quick, before we get too deep into this conversation, I wanted to give you guys a peek under the hood when it comes to the data. So the data on this app shows me that less than 21% of my average monthly listeners are actually subscribed to the show. Now, subscribing to the show helps way more than you'd think. It helps the show get pushed out to more people. It helps the show grow. It helps me get more guests. It helps improve the quality. So if you guys like listening to me and more importantly, like listening to the guests that I'm bringing on, do me a quick favor, hit the subscribe button right here on this app, and we will continue to grow the show bigger and better with each and every episode. Thank you so much. I remember when I first got exposed to sleep and its importance. I think I was like 18. It was like 2017, 18, 19. It was Dr. Matthew Walker went on the Joe Rogan podcast. It was like his
Yeah.
first time on there. And I listened to that one. And that one was a lot of like the importance of sleep and also like you're terrible without it. And I was training, like I was trying to compete in CrossFit at the time, and I was like training 6 hours a day, and I was doing everything that I was doing. And I was like, okay, my whole day's ruined if I don't sleep. Like just and he started because he went off on a lot of things about the importance of sleep, and definitely I've prioritized it since then. But he also, I think he made some claims that he has since taken back. Like he cited a study where it was like you have more light receptors than just your eyes. Like, he cited a study where they were sleeping in a blacked out room and they had, like, a red dot taped to their arm, and just, like, that little source of light, like, affected your sleep. And I was like, "I gotta black out my whole room, I can't," and, like, I couldn't get it perfectly black. So that's kind of when I got onto the sleep bandwagon, is back in 2017, and since then, I've really done everything that I can to prioritize on my sleep, because 'cause I've noticed, like, without it, I just the
Yeah.
world is darker, I'm less happy, I'm less optimistic, I don't perform as well, my brain is slower, all of those things.
Yeah, Matt's a good guy. I mean, I mean, everybody owes him a massive debt in terms of putting sleep on the map. I always look at his book as sort of on the other if there's some sort of sleep book spectrum, his is, infrared and mine is ultraviolet, in the sense that when I encounter people, maybe like a GM of a sports organization, or a trauma surgeon like I was talking about earlier, who's like, as long as I get my 4 hours, I'm fine. I think sleeps for the week, I can make it all up at the end of the month, just dumb stuff like that that's so, backwards and old school thinking. I think his book's great. I mean, I think his book is really a powerful treatise in terms of, "Oh, you don't believe sleep's important? Well, you should read this book." Are the things a little bit overblown, or are there some things in there like yeah, and there's yeah, sure, but I'm sure if you really nitpick my books, they'd be like, "Well, we don't believe this anymore," or, "I think you misinterpreted that." I mean, I'm sure I did, but it was not intentional, but I'm sure I did. My books are a lot more like, "Look, you don't have to be perfect with sleep any more than you have to be perfect with eating." And I think we've got a real cultural problem that his book did not help, which is, when I see patients in my clinic and somebody says, and I say, how have things been since we last spoke? Oh, my sleep's really not been good. Okay. So here we go. The first thing out of your mouth is, you're not sleeping well. And then the next sentence that's gonna be out of your mouth is, "What does that mean?" I can tell you 99% of the time it's taking me a long time to fall asleep, or I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep right away, which I think is about the worst definition of bad sleep.
Mm,
And if you're somebody who is in that sort of insomnia bubble and you read Matt Walker's book, you've just taken your insomnia to, like, a DEFCON 5 level. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because now your inability to sleep, which kinda made you feel groggy and irritable, is going to kill you. It's gonna shorten your life. It's going to end you up in a nursing home. So now, good luck sleeping tomorrow night after having read that book, because now you're essentially sleeping with a gun to your head. "Okay, fall asleep or I'm gonna shoot you,"
mhm,
which nobody can do. So to me, it's about not being infrared, it's not ultraviolet, it's being somewhere in the green spectrum,
yeah,
where you value sleep and it's important to you and you prioritize it, but you also understand that it's not perfect. Nobody sleeps perfect. I mean, what happens when you go to lunch with your friends and you don't feel hungry and you just don't order food? Like, your friends are like, "Oh, you're not gonna eat?" "Yeah, I had a big breakfast. I'm just gonna have a Diet Coke and enjoy being with you guys, but I'm not hungry." Would you
mm,
call your doctor about that? "Hey, I was out at lunch and I wasn't hungry and I don't wanna starve to death, so could you send me a sleeping pill or something? Like, I don't know, like, this is really worried me out. I'm freaking out here." No, because we all have this intrinsic sort of built-in, "Oh, well, our appetite isn't perfect. We don't always eat breakfast, lunch, dinner at 7 AM, noon, and 6 o'clock." There's a ebb and flow there. We can
mhm,
try to be scheduled about it and not be haphazard about our eating, but at the end of the day, sometimes you're hungry, sometimes you're not, and it's not that big a deal. Sleep's the same way. So when somebody says, "I don't know, I've been sleeping poorly. Sometimes it takes me an hour to fall asleep." I'm like, "Okay, well, why are you sleeping poorly?" "Well, I just told you it takes me an hour to fall asleep sometimes." That to me is irrelevant. Does not
mm.
matter whatsoever. Like, so stop thinking it doesn't. So, whenever I talk to Matt, I'm like, man, you have put so many people in my clinic. I could never think you've made me so much money because when people read your book, they lost their shit. Like, right. They're really, really terrified now. And I know
Yeah.
that was not his intention, but it's about, if somebody doesn't care about sleep, they probably should not read my book. If somebody
Mhm.
cares too much about sleep, I think my book is a great solution and antidote to that fear.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely my experience when I read Matthew Walker's book.
Yeah, you're
As
right.
I
Fuck,
mean,
yeah.
uh,
You're giving away all your possessions. I'm not gonna be here that much longer on this earth,
yeah, I
so
know.
you can have all my vinyl.
So, I mean, sleep is one of those few things is like the more you try, the harder you try at it, the worse you do
You
at it.
bet, you
And
bet.
and for me, I have like this really weird, unique trait, but I don't metabolize caffeine. Like I don't get any effects from caffeine. And so when I drink it, I don't drink caffeine because it doesn't do anything for me. It's really weird. It's all my siblings, all of us have that. And so I always prioritize my sleep. And if I have to get up early that day, I'm like, okay, I need to go to bed at this time. So I wake up at this time so I can get this amount of sleep. And then I'm like not falling asleep. And I'm like, and now I have this much time and I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. And it's just like kind of a progressive cycle. That was early on. Now I've gotten better at it in terms of like, I'm not trying to be a professional athlete. I'm not trying to train. And also it's just, I've gotten the ability where it's like, okay, I'll be tired tomorrow, but I can still perform. Like I'll still be able to do what I can do. I'll
Yeah.
just do it a little bit tireder. And that kind of takes the pressure off. And that's kind of been the big change that allows me to sleep even on those nights when I kind of feel stressed about waking up the next day.
Yeah, I mean, and you see examples of that all over the place. Olympic athletes will tell you, "Oh God, the night before the marathon, I didn't sleep and had a PR." A middle
Hmm.
infielder for the San Francisco Giants one time came up to me at spring training. He said, I wanted you to know that last season, I have kids and they were both up all night throwing up, and my wife and I were dealing with vomit coming out all over the place, and we never slept. I came into the clubhouse the next day and told Boach, he was like, I am not gonna be able to go today. And he was like, sorry, I don't, you are, because I don't have anybody to replace you. You're going to play today. And so he said, it was the only game in my career I hit 2 home runs. And the funny thing was the player was like, "I was gonna call you, but I couldn't remember your name." So, so anyway, so you say, so, every now and then we all find those little spots in our life where you're like, "Okay, that last night wasn't optimal, but I did fine the next day." And what's really fascinating is when you really dive into the research on the subject, you can sort of sort people into 4 groups. People who sleep well and perform well and believe they're good sleepers. People who sleep well but think they're bad sleepers. People who sleep poorly and think they're good sleepers. People who sleep poorly and know they're bad sleepers. So one would think the way you sleep would affect the way you perform the next day. It's actually how you believe you slept.
Mm.
So if you're a terrible, you stay up too late, you're the trauma surgeon. As long as I get my 3 hours, I'm good to go. I love, I love trauma surgeons. They all get that attitude. Like, give me my two
Scary.
hours in my call room. I'm good to go. I'm taking that spleen out, baby. They're not going to give up their case just because they only got 2 hours of sleep. They're good to go. And they are generally, they're probably going to, I mean, 99 times out of 100, they're going to take the right kidney out. It's just that one time out of 100, they're like, "God damn, I took the wrong kidney out. Sorry about that. I'll put it back and take the right one out." That belief is so powerful. I see people all the time who are actually pretty good sleepers, but believe themselves. Oh, it took them an hour to fall asleep, so my day is shot and my workout's going to be shot. I'm going to be trash at work, and they will manifest that destiny for sure, which creates the feedback loop of, oh, I've got to get better sleep tonight or else tomorrow will be even worse. And it just
Mhm.
kind of snowballs. So it really is about, just kind of controlling the variables you can control and then knowing that, yeah, you'll be fine. I mean, that's kind of what medical school taught us all, is that you can get absolutely criminally tortured overnight. I came from an era where we could be on call legally every other day, and we often
Jeez.
were. We call it was Q2, like every 2 days. So you would and Q2 was go in at 5 a.m. in pre-round and then do your job that day, be on call that night, round the next morning, stay most of that day, leave at 5 p.m., go home. Hi, child. I'm your father. Look at my face because you're not going to see it much longer because I'll be gone. And one day I'll be there for you, but not right now. And so then you like eat a little something and try to play with your kids, and you're asleep and back at the hospital at 5 a.m. I mean, it was dangerous.
Mm.
But you learn that, well, even in those circumstances, we did okay. You know what I mean? I would not want you to be my patient at this time. I remember one time calling while I was putting orders in a completely wrong part of the computer because I was literally falling asleep as I was typing. I mean, and I'm good at sleep deprivation, so you kind of learn that you can do it. It's not great. And everybody has a kind of come to Jesus moment in their 30s of, just because I can stay up late and get up early and get some stuff done and do okay, is this the best thing for me to be doing to my health? I remember having that um, sort of conversation with myself, even as a sleep doctor.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's really about control the variables in your life that you can control and then let go of it. You're going to be fine. It's impossible not to sleep. So what are we really that worried about? And that's what I love about sleep trackers. Not to go off on a tangent here, but a lot of the sleep technology has been really fantastic in terms of helping people just relax a little bit in terms of, what do you think happened last night? And what did your watch or ring or headband or smart underwear say? Like whatever you got going on. Like, what did it say? Well, it said I slept 6.5 hours. Well, there you go. Yeah, but I don't think it works. I only slept 2. No, you slept 6.5. These devices are really good at getting an amount of time that you slept. It may not be good quality sleep or amazing sleep, but you're not sleeping 2 hours and working as a circuit court judge, as one
Mm.
as one of my patients told me. She's like, "I'm only sleeping 2 hours a night and have since I was a kid." I'm like, "Nope, not humanly possible." There's a
Yeah.
guy in London. I used to be on his radio show like once a month. He's like, "Hello, Dr. Winner from the United States. What's going on with sleep?" And like whatever. He's like, "I don't sleep. I only sleep 3 hours a night, and it's terrible. It's torture to me." I'm like, "Well," and so at one point I was like, "Why don't you get like a stick and tape it to a hat and then put a camera on it? And then why don't you live stream your life for a week and show everybody, including me, who's super interested? I want to see a human function at your level, only sleeping 3 hours a night. So prove it. You can turn
Yeah.
the camera off when you go to the bathroom or you're doing something with your partner, but like show us, like document it." I said, no human has ever slept 3 hours a night, and thrive. Like, that doesn't exist. So it's to show, "Oh, thank you very much, Doctor. It's a hilarious idea. Maybe we'll do that. Goodbye." And that was it. Like, that was the whole like bit. Like, I mean, so the amount of people who say they don't sleep and the amount of people who are sleeping are vastly different populations of people.
I
Anyway,
mean, I think I fall in the category of somebody who's a good sleeper but thinks they're a bad sleeper.
yeah,
Because
there you go.
I
Yeah, and that's a really interesting thing. So why do you think that?
um I was talking about this the other day, but like the fragility of over optimizing. So like I got super into sleep early on. Like I had my come into Jesus moment when I was like 19 about sleep, and I've been prioritizing it. But then I got too far into it. So it's like, okay, I need to set my temperature. I need to cool down my room. I need to have my 8 sleep cool. I need to have my blue light blocking glasses. I need to turn my phone off an hour before bed. I need to take my magnesium. I need to read my fiction book so I can wind down. I need to turn off all the overhead lights and only have red lights in the room. And so like I started to over optimize these things. And then if one thing didn't go right, it's like, oh, the whole night's ruined, my whole routine's off. And then even though I'm
Yeah,
doing so much more versus my wife who just gets some of those things by osmosis and doesn't
yeah,
prioritize a
yeah.
lot of it. She's just like in bed, lights out, and then up the next day, and she does great and sleeps all through the night. So I've gotten better at it, but, traditionally, my over optimization would lead to a certain degree of fragility if it didn't go
Yeah, that's
perfectly.
that's orthosomnia defined. Kelly
Y
Barron came up with that term, and I think it's such an awesome term, and she's an awesome person too. She'd probably be a really good person to be on your podcast. She coined this term orthosomnia, which is sort of hurting your sleep because you're trying to optimize it so much that if it's not perfect, and that's what ortho straight,
Mhm.
it's perfect. It's, perfectly straight and awesome and level and whatever, that creates anxiety and actually ends up hurting sleep, which, I always ask somebody before they start a fitness tracker, like, it's just information. It
Yep.
shouldn't be causing you stress or feeling like you're taking an exam every night on sleep and you wake up in the morning and let's see what your grade is. Oh man, C minus or frowny face on my little watch. Crap. It's gonna be a bad day now. Like that's not where you want it to be. It's more like, I wonder if I sleep better in this hotel we're going to be staying at. Or, we were at a bed and breakfast. And I really liked that mattress they had. Let me look back at my data over those 7 days and then compare that to data for my own bed and see if I notice any trend there. Was I actually sleeping better or not? Like that's kind of what you want it for. It's not
Yeah.
some sort of judgment on your sleep. You're gonna be fine. Well, I always thought that book that I never read it, so I'm not gonna give it too hard of a time. Breath, or something.
Oh, by
Very
James
serious.
Nestor?
Breath. Nestor. That's right.
Yeah.
Breath. Oh yeah, breath. In through your nose, out through your mouth, or you die. And you want to be in this I thought about writing a book called Blinking. It was called Blinking: The Lost Art. In fact, I made a little funny cover for it and sent it to my literary agent, and he didn't respond. He never responds to my dumb jokes. He just it was like total radio silence. But I said, I've got an idea. Like it was the Blinking: The Lost Art. How we should be blinking, and I was just thought that come on, like, and maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe it moves the needle from 96 to 97% or something like that.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, like our bodies are pretty good at taking in food, finding a mate and creating a baby, blinking, sleeping, eating some food. Like, yes, there are some ways we can move that needle a little bit to the left and to the right, but these things are to some degree automatic and beyond our control. So this idea that you have a lot of control over your sleep based upon your lighting and your temperature and your footwear and your eye mask and whatnot. It's not really that true.
Yeah.
Which is why whenever you look at any research on sleep, generally improves sleep. It's really funny. Like, this headband improves your deep sleep by 20% and da 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 by 20%, 20%. Yes, because belief and confidence is huge in sleep. There was a great
Mhm.
study where just getting in bed, imagining yourself in a submarine going deeper into the ocean improved your deep sleep like 68%. So like then you start getting back to it's all just about kind of mindfulness and taking care of yourself, and sleep sort of follows if you're in a relatively reasonable environment. So I find the whole it's all fascinating to me. I just love
Yeah.
it.
I was an OG adopter of Whoop. I think I got
Yeah,
into it, like, early back in the day, back when you had to buy it for, like, $500 and then you didn't have a subscription model, so I'm grandfathered in now, which is nice. But,
that's good.
when I originally purchased it, I ended up not wearing it after, like, 6 months because of that. It would cause me more stress. Like, every morning I'd wake up and I'd look at my grade, and that's how my whole day was determined. Now I wear a Whoop and it doesn't bother me. Like, I don't even look at it most days. Like, I just like, at the
Yeah,
week, I'll go through and kinda see what I did because the pressure's off. If there
it's
was
a
one
great it's a
thing.
great truth teller. I mean,
Yeah.
I wear a Withings band just because I like it because it looks like a nice heavy metal men's watch instead of a fitness thing. So when I kind of dressed up to give a lecture, I like it. And um, but it's a nice check in the opposite direction too, because if you ask me, "How much sleep do you get?" I would say I'm getting probably average about 7, 7.5 hours of sleep a night. Sometimes you look at that device, you're like, "No." For the last month, it's been like 6 hours 15.
Mm,
So you're like, "Ooh, well, maybe I need to." It's like a scale. You hop on the scale like, "Oh, okay. That's an interesting second number. I haven't seen that in a while." Like, I need to lay off the tortilla chips and cookies maybe for a little bit. So I just think that it's a nice sort of thing to look at sometimes, because I think there are people and that we need to come up with a different term. So orthosomnia is you're engaging with it and it's freaking you out. There's an opposite term of like you're engaging with it and it's freaking you out that you're not doing
mhm.
really well. Like, um, where you're like, "Ooh, okay, 5." I remember one time looking at my watch and I was like 5:45 for the month. And then you start thinking about, because if somebody had asked me, "How much are you sleeping?" 7 hours. And then if my wife's around, she'd be like, "7? Chris, what are you talking about? 7 hours." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" Well, okay, well, right, yeah, I guess I did have to get up early to catch that flight that one day. Oh, yeah, you're right. I was doing that one thing really late into, like, when you start thinking, it's all up, it goes back to like, do you think you're a good sleeper or a bad sleeper? And, I'm always sort of positive about things like my exercise and my eating or whatever. But when presented with data, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I think I'm seeing this through sort of rose-colored glasses," versus other people, My sleep's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible." And then the device is trying to tell you, "No, it's not. No, it's not. You're actually really good. You're really good." So, both populations can really benefit from that. So that I'm like you, I kinda interact with it every now and then, and it sort of sets me on the right course or reinforces, good behavior.
Well, if you could just snap your fingers and everybody would understand one thing about sleep, what would that thing be
It's
for you? That
impossible not to sleep. So
Yeah,
stop
okay.
fucking saying, "I can't sleep." Like, so I always try to leave. I like things open-ended with a client or an athlete or a patient. "Hey, I'm Chris. It's great to see you today. How can I help you?" I want it to be as open as possible because I'm really curious, because those first few statements from a patient really sort of set a tone. "Well, you can help me sleep." Something like that. That's very common. "Well, I'm here
Mhm,
because somebody said you could help me sleep." Okay, when you say "help me sleep," what do you mean? Like, I mean, I don't sleep. I mean, I've never been able to sleep. Like, those kinds of, like, what planet do you think you're from? Like, do you really believe, like, and so it's interesting. It can be kind of in a weird way confrontational. And if you
mhm.
look, I did an academic lecture at a university on insomnia one time. Somebody invited me to do it. I love it when people invite me to do it. This never happens. Every now and then, somebody's like, "We'd love for you to come and do a lecture. You can do it on whatever you want." Like, totally open-ended. So they said, "We want you to do a lecture on insomnia. You can do whatever you want." So I actually based the whole lecture on one-star Amazon reviews of my first book, like the truly, "I hate this book. I hate this author." And it was sort of this bizarre tour de force of insomnia thinking. He says people sleep, but blah, blah, blah. I've never slept. And, like, and this book doesn't help you. He just makes you feel, it's interesting the emotion that gets wrapped up in that. So if I could just sort of put information out in the world, or I could control the media, which it seems like we're about 3 years away from being able to control the media in a very sinister, dark way, then I would say to the overlords that control our lives now, and make people disappear, "Hey, could you just not allow anybody ever in the media to write the words 'can't sleep'? I hate the media article. What to do when you can't sleep. Here's some tips and tricks for when you can't sleep." No, it's not can't sleep. It's just that you're not sleeping right now. I'm talking to you right now. I'm not sleeping. It's not that I
Mhm.
can't sleep. If you said, "Okay, Chris, stop talking to me, go sit on that couch behind you and go to sleep," I might be able to, but probably not. That's not pathological. When somebody says they get into bed, they can't fall asleep right away, who cares? Then read a book. Read my
Mhm.
book. It'll put you right to sleep. Like, right, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we've got this kind of idea that, and it's totally perverse, that the person who can't sleep is really in trouble, and their partner, who every time they sit down, they fall asleep, is
Yep.
an awesome sleeper. Oh man, I wish I could be like that guy. Man, as soon as his head hits the pillow, he's asleep. Right, but that's not good. That's like
Yeah.
seeing somebody eating food out of a trash can and being like, "Wow, I wish I could be a good eater like that person. Look how aggressively they eat." Yes, because they're starving to death. That's not a good eater. So that to me is so lost. And unfortunately, and I keep track of this because if somebody asks me to write, help them with an article, I'll keep it in a database. Like, okay, I worked with this writer in Men's Health magazine. We did this article, and this was the date, whatever. And here's the topic. I mean, when you look at about 1,000 articles, about 90% of them are about insomnia, about inability to sleep. We never write about people who are excessively sleepy.
Mhm.
And so we create this culture of good sleep is when you get in bed and fall asleep fast and never wake up. And whatever you need to do to get that, including taking sedation, is the right thing. I mean, it really disappointed me when Lindsey Vonn made this commercial a few years ago for a sleeping pill. She's like, "My life was a mess until I started taking this pill." I'm like, "Okay, really? Is that true?" Number
Yeah.
1. Number 2, like, what do you think this pill is doing? Look at the website's own data. You can go on the site and data. How much faster does this pill make you fall asleep? How much more sleep are you getting? More importantly than all of that, show me some data that that pill improves performance, not worsens it. What a terrible message that, oh, I want to perform at the highest level. So I need to take pills because sometimes I get in bed and I can't fall asleep right away. Who cares?
Yeah.
Be awake. So I just really just an awful message and weird. So all kinds of questions like, do you really take this? She says it was like Lindsey Vaughn, this pill user. Like that was her title. If anybody ever fucking defines me as Chris Winter, laxative user, like something's gone dramatically wrong in my life. So like define me however you want to. I hope it's not by the medications that I have to take to keep my hair from thinning or get my bowels moving the proper way. So, so then it's kind of like, these drugs cause sedation and bad decision making and weird stuff. And, there's all kinds of warnings with them. If you do dangerous activities like fly an airplane, operate a jackhammer, or I guess fly downhill on skis, this might not be a great drug for you to put in your body anywhere near your competition. So anyway, I just, so to me, those messages are so strong in our society, and the tiny little voices of like, "Hey, relax. You're gonna
Yeah.
sleep eventually. It's impossible not to," are very tiny, and I wish they were amplified.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's self-discovery for me. That's been the biggest change for me is like I just take the pressure's not there for me on sleep anymore. Like, yeah, I do everything I can to
That's
prioritize it,
awesome.
but I sleep better now than I ever have, and it's been great. So when people are listening to this and they're like, I mean, I don't know what any sleep medications are off the top of my head, like NyQuil or something like that. They're like, oh, when I'm tired, I just take NyQuil. You would say, okay, you might be going you might be, like, knocked out, but you're not asleep, like, you're not getting the benefits of going through the sleep stages.
Yeah, a lot of medications are like that. Plus, it's
Yeah,
also funny, like, and this what you said is very true. I'm tired, so I take night. Well, if you're tired, go to sleep. Well,
yeah,
but when I go to bed, I don't fall asleep right away. Then you're not sleepy. And that's where we get it. I wrote a whole chapter in my first book about the differences, but it's a problematic word, tired. If I go out and run 10 miles and come back and you ask me, oh, that looked like fun. You want to run another 10? I'm going to say, no, I'm too tired to do that. CrossFit, I'm too tired to do another pull up or whatever. Like I'm spent. So
mhm,
what happens is you're going to need to rest for a while, get some energy back in your body, and then maybe you can do some more pull-ups or run another 10 miles. When you stop doing the pull-ups, it's not because you're too sleepy. I can't do another pull-up. Why? 'Cause I'm nodding off up there. No, that's a totally different word, but we use tired to mean both. And I think if more and more people use the words fatigue and sleepy, we'd be a whole lot better off, especially in your interactions with your doctor. If you're saying to me, I am so sleepy, I cannot stay awake during any of my college classes, that is tired, sleepy. Okay,
Mhm.
you're saying tired. I'm saying you're sleepy. You're so sleepy that even though you sit in the front row, you can't stay awake to listen to that professor and you fall asleep and then you get made fun of. That's sleepy. Fatigue is I can't do any more push-ups or I can't run anymore. Or I had one patient tell me, I am so tired, I can't fold laundry at night. Okay, that's fatigue. Go to bed. Well, then I don't fall asleep. Right, because you're not sleepy. You're fatigued. If we stopped using tired to describe both, we would help people so much because I need you to go to bed when you're sleepy. If you say to me, Chris, for the past 5 years, I go to bed at 10 o'clock, it always takes me 2 hours to fall asleep. Why do you go to bed at 10 o'clock? I'm so tired. Okay. Well, if you're tired, rest. Sit on the couch, put your feet up, watch an episode of The Pit, whatever you like to do, and then keep watching episodes of The Pit until you're falling asleep watching episodes of The Pit. Now you're sleepy. Now it's time to go to bed. Like we. So to me, it's really problematic that we don't really because there are disorders that cause fatigue. A, anemia. B, B12 deficiency. C, COVID, long COVID. D, depression. I can give you one for every letter of the alphabet that have nothing to do with sleep. So you go to
Mhm.
your doctor and you're like, I'm so tired. Oh my God, I just never feel rested. Okay, well, we need to get you on some sleeping pills, get you sleeping better, which sleeping pills don't really make you sleep better. They make you sedated longer, but they're not making you sleep better or make you perform any better the next day. Instead of opening up the idea, when you say you're so tired, what do you mean? Well, I'm just low energy and blah, blah, blah. And so we've really got more granular in our conversations about people about being tired. That doctor would never say sleeping pill. They'd be like, "Oh, it sounds like you've got more fatigue going on than sleepiness. Maybe we need to check a thyroid, B12. If you're a guy, testosterone. We'll start there, and then we'll start getting a little bit more into the weird stuff, tick-borne illnesses, heavy metal toxicity. I mean, there's all kinds of things that make people feel like crap that have nothing to do with bad sleep. But people get locked into, they wake up, they feel bad, so they think, oh, if only I could get my sleep better. Time to buy some glasses and some headbands and some new pillows and a new mattress and a vibrating this and a light that and a cold this and it's just you were never chasing the right target to begin with.
Well, I mean, are there? I mean, on the on this subject of external aids, are there any things that you do recommend to improve? Let's say not increase, but improve the quality of your sleep, like blue light blocking glasses before bed, or temperature, or a sauna, or any of those things?
I think they're all awesome. I mean, if you're somebody who has the time and the interest in doing it, I have no problem with them. Um, I think these are things that are much better at taking good sleepers and making them even better sleepers. To
Mhm.
me, I think about everything you just mentioned, like, um, who's that hurdler? She's so amazing, like Sydney McLaughlin or something like that. Like, she comes to me and says, I really want to break my own world record in that hurdle thing. How can I do it? And I'm her track coach. I'm like, well, maybe we need to think about a 3/4 inch spike and maybe you should cut your hair. Maybe there's some drag coefficient with your hair. So maybe you either cut it or we figure out some sort of cap you can wear. And let's take a look at your actual outfit. There's very little there already, but maybe we could change the material in terms of something that allows air to pass over it. We're getting rid of the laces on your shoes. It's going to be smooth. Maybe we need to change up the way you train. We're making tiny little adjustments now that are hopefully going to shave that 0.101 second off of her hurdle time and allow her to break her world record again. To me, everything you mentioned are like those things. when you're showing up at the track for the first time, 40 pounds overweight, have never run in your life, all those things I mentioned are meaningless. Like, let's get you into a more form fitting, blah, 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 and look at the size of your spike. No, it's like, okay, stretch. 'Cause, we don't want to rip a hamstring on day one here. Like, let's get you some comfortable shoes, a little Lululemon outfit, and we're gonna like do a lot of stretching and some easy jogs, followed by walk and jog, and we'll work our way up to something. I feel like a lot of people who have terrible sleep problems are going to those things thinking they're going to solve a problem. They're
Mhm.
not. They're for you. CrossFit athlete, started entering some competitions, really taking my nutrition to the next level, trying to look for little things that might show up as a new PR in the gym. Yes, I think all those things can do it. In fact, I made a poster for a Major League Baseball team that was like, here's 100 things you could do to optimize your sleep. How many are you doing? Because that's where they are. They're like the MVP. They're the best third baseman in the league. They're leading the league in stolen bases or whatever. Like, they're amazing. They're better than
Mhm.
everybody else. So now we're like, how can we make you even a little bit better, or maybe a little bit less injury prone, or a little bit more resilient at the end of the season because you're a little bit of an older guy now? And how can we keep that performance level up at a high level, even as this incredibly long season drags on? That's what those things are for.
Okay.
Not, I've only sleep 1 hour a night. I can't sleep. Okay, well, here's some blue blocking glasses. Now you just made the problem worse because they didn't work. I tried them. They didn't work. I'm still a terrible sleeper. Oh my God, what's wrong with my brain? It doesn't respond to blue blocking glasses or, whatever. Like, so anyway.
So, like, what I'm hearing, like, the Andrew Huberman, you made a post about Brian Johnson recently, and I listened to a
Oh
podcast too about
God, Jesus fucking Christ. It was, I love it. He goes, the best part of that video is like, he's in a podcast and it's very serious, and he looks like it. He looks like Data from Star Trek. Like, he's a little. I don't believe he's a real man anymore. I think he's, what's that? And like, if you take one piece of wood off a ship and replace it, it's still the
Yeah,
ship. But as you keep replacing the wood, when does it become something it wasn't
a
before?
new
I
ship,
think that
yeah.
dude is not human anymore. But anyway, so the best part of that thing is he's just talking about stuff that makes no sense for about 100 different reasons. I could barely compress them all into a single video. But the best part is like, and I use the sauna and it like annihilates all the toxins and plastics in my body. And that's pretty cool. I love that. Like, we've discovered the DNA sequence of the woolly mammoth, and we're going to try to clone it in the lab, and that's pretty cool. Anyway, so yeah, I just
So
love the idea that, yeah, 90% out of his blood. It just made no sense. And then when you think about plastics, these are big pieces, relatively speaking, in the human body. A microplastic, there's nothing micro about it. It's enormous.
mhm.
And I love the fact that he wakes up or gets out of the sauna and just like scrapes the plastic off his skin that's been extruded from his pores. And oh, it was just the dumbest video ever. And I
He
probably
did
wouldn't have said
mention that.
anything, but I like saunas. I think
Mhm.
saunas are cool. I actually did something for Sauna Box. I wrote them. I was like, this is dumb. You should take this off. And they wrote, we're just putting that on there as an educational sort of thing. People can make their own minds about it. I'm like, and I wrote him back and said, okay, we can agree to disagree about what educational means, because this
Mhm.
is about as far from educational. And this is like the thing I hate about social media. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast, I guess.
Well, but just kinda to bring him up is, like, all the things that these people are talking about, like, and the things that I mentioned, all these additional aids to improve your sleep, they're not necessary for 90% of the population who's suffering from poor sleep. They
Yeah,
just need.
well, so it's not about them they will help,
Okay.
it's just that you've gotta get an individual into the proper framework of, the biggest problem in the most problematic word in sleep medicine is work. It
Mm,
worked. It didn't work. I took caffeine in the morning. It didn't work. Or it worked. Whatever. Like, so you've gotta get the individual who is telling you, "I only sleep an hour at night." would a thing that cools their bed, would blocking out light, will all these things help sleep? Yes, it would. I would argue that you drinking caffeine an hour before you go to bed versus you not, it will worsen your sleep. You may not feel it the next day. I don't. Whenever my family's not around, I drink caffeine well into the night because I love coffee. And I
Yeah.
don't lean on it. Like I don't need it the next day. I just love the taste. I love the ritual, whatever. I would say to you, I drink a latte before I go to bed, doesn't affect me at all. My wife would have a very different opinion about that, as would my fitness tracker. Be like, oh yeah, it's kind of shitty. It's my tracker, it isn't that good, you know. Yeah, because the
Mhm.
caffeine work. So to me, all these things are great. If you're a terrible sleeper, sure, change the light and the temperature in your bedroom. But if your definition of work is, "It didn't make me sleep 7 hours, I'm only sleeping my 1," then you're never gonna feel it. But all
Yeah.
these things that Brian Johnson or these people are doing are good. It's just that, A, they're not necessary. Like, we were sleeping pretty well before we had the blue light nap pod $1,000 thing you got going on, whatever, like, but it's fine. Like, to me, like, when I look at Brian Johnson, he's rich, which is probably the biggest single factor for living a long life is just having a truck. He's got a garage full of money. He just goes out there and buys
Yep.
whatever he wants. So that'll extend his life for sure, just money. So do I think that he'll live a probably pretty long life? Sure. Do I think he'll come anywhere near the goals that he set out for? No, no.
No.
He'll, because
Just
city
as a
buses
tangent,
don't care, right?
he dropped on Instagram, I think it was yesterday, um, he's taking on clients, I think,
Oh, I'm sure
for
he is. Yeah.
$1,000,000 to be his
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
a
Well,
client.
listen, that's Darwinian. I think I'm in full support of that. It's just too bad that, like, there wasn't some sort of, like, he takes, clients for 1,000,000 and 500,000 goes to, like, a really cool charity, like, that'd be pretty
Yeah.
awesome, like, that would be a wonderful way to redistribute the wealth, so, yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I don't, it's a terrible situation. I don't wish anybody to die, but
Yeah.
when our natural ends come, it'll be very helpful to understand that he's not proving anything beyond the fact that if you have access to good health care and money, you're going to live a longer life than if you don't. So it's
Mhm.
too bad that he can't take that money and invest it into places where there is a massive health access disparity instead of just taking people who are rich and are already going to live a pretty long life and just take their money and give them a whole bunch of supplements, which are really funny because, like, I was thinking about all the I watched some of that Netflix thing that he did just because I was,
Yeah.
out of morbid curiosity. I'm like, wow, that is a lot of pills, and all those pills are covered in little membranes and little microplastics. I was like, you're putting a lot of stuff in your body for somebody who's trying to get stuff out of your body. But anyway, and that's the funny thing too that I said in the video is like, okay, let's assume that you've done something that's gotten 90% of microplastics out of your body, which is not true. But let's pretend it's true. How do you know it's the sauna? You do
Mhm.
like a million things to your body, like some weird things, man. You take a lot of weird stuff. Like, how do you know it's the sauna that's reducing all that stuff? Like, there's no science here. And when you watch it, it's very clear. It's like,
Yep.
let me go do these weird things and eat this weird food, and then I have this weird interaction with my son and go back to doing weird things and exercising, and then media and promotion. Oh God, it just looks so I feel bad for the guy. His life looks just miserable to me. I wanna fade away into, like, obsolescence. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how I see the
Yeah.
last 20 years of my life is like, "Well, like, what was his name? I don't remember." It was like a season.
Yeah.
And then nobody remembers me, nobody gives a crap about me anymore. I'm just, like, piddling around my garden and, trying to get my kids to come visit me, and that's will be the end of me. Like, I kinda like that. So, anyway,
Yeah.
poor guy.
Yeah, it's, I watched that Netflix, video with him as well. It was I like it how
Just the
his
fact that
gym.
we made that Netflix was like, "We're gonna make this and distribute," like, I wish somebody would come to me like, "Hey, Chris, give me 5 names of people doing really cool stuff that should have a Netflix special about them." Man, like, there's so much cool stuff going on, and that's what we choose to put our attention on. Like, I just listened to a podcast on the New York Times. It was The Daily. It was either no, it was, the Ezra Klein podcast, and somebody was talking about they used the term shitification. That was the it's like when things start out cool and then they eventually become not cool, like the shitification of the internet. I thought that was such a great term, and yeah, the shitification of Netflix. Let's give this guy
Yeah.
a platform to make him even more money for swindling people out of, based upon pseudoscience. My God. Um,
Is there any popular sleep advice that is really bad that's going around off the top of your head right now?
um, I will give the internet some credit. Somebody did a study, and I wish I knew it off the top of my head. I'm so um It was and I talked about it in an episode of my podcast, which was somebody did a study where they looked at all the sleep information coming out of the internet in a month.
Hmm.
And they were basically like, it's good information. It's repetitive. It's kind of stuff you probably already heard before. They said the only piece of information we could not back up was something about cleaning your sheets. No, letting your bed air out helps you sleep better or something like that. Which was one of those things where it's not bad, it's not dangerous advice. Like, if you leave your bed unmade, yeah, you'll piss your mom off because she wants you to make your bed every morning. Or if you're in the military, that'll get you running her laps or something like that. But, like, there's nothing dangerous about airing out your bed for better sleep. They just said there's no data behind it. But everything else, they're like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." So to me, there's not a lot of bad advice out there. There's a lot of nuance. Like, one of the pieces of advice that always irritates me is get in bed, and if you don't fall asleep in 15 minutes, get out and go do something. This is like a way you treat your insomnia. Number 1, who in the world is going to effectively sleep with a shot clock? Okay, I'm gonna get in bed, and here's my phone stopwatch. I'm setting it to 15 minutes and go. All right. Okay. Oh God, I'm already at 13 and a half minutes. This is not like, all the, to me, it's like that's absurd. And number 2, it sort of paints this picture of if you're in bed and you're not sleeping, that's bad. I don't
Mhm.
think it's bad at all. I love being in bed awake. I think it's an awesome time. It's a private time. It's a time you can sit there, and I never have time to think about stuff. It's always react, 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 but like creatively think about, oh, I would love to like do a children's book about this, or I would love to plan something for my wife for Valentine's Day. I don't have a single second of the day free to do anything like just sit, have a coffee, and think about something that isn't putting out a fire. But
Mhm.
I find that at night, I can't be on I'm on my laptop, so I'm in bed, sitting there in the dark. I've got nothing else to do but think. So sometimes I'm sometimes kind of frustrated if I go to bed and then the next thing I know, the alarm clock's going off. I'm like, "Oh, man, I didn't even have a chance to, like, think about some stuff last night," or even if it's, like, trivial, like, think about, I was watching A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and I'm so excited for the next episode to come out. I thought that was such a great
Yeah.
crafted little story and so
That's
different,
perfect.
and
I can't wait for the next one.
I can't either. So, like, I
Yeah.
was thinking about that and, like, what a fun thing to think about, like, and so I embrace that time at night. So I instead of that, get in bed 15 minutes and do something else, I always tell people, go to bed, turn the lights out, and rest. Say your prayers, do your breath work, meditate, whatever. And if after 2 minutes you feel upset and frustrated or whatever, then get up and go do something if you want to. Or if you're like sitting there and you're happy, even though you're not asleep and you're thinking about your celebrity crush or the Game of Thrones episode or whatever you got going on in your life and planning out your vacation or building a dream house in your mind or whatever, like, then stay there. You know? Be
Mhm.
there an hour or 2. Resting is wildly helpful to your body. It's why I named mistakenly, by the way, but I named my second book The Rested Child, because that's such a powerful message of get in bed, child, and read your Junie B. Jones Magic Treehouse book, and if you fall asleep, great. If you don't, just keep reading your book or relax or color a picture or something, like, just rest. Like, resting is very helpful to your body, and it's always under our control,
Mhm.
unlike sleep. So to me, that would be the little piece of advice I might be like, "This isn't awesome advice for somebody who's already really worked up about trying to sleep.
Yeah. I've heard that, and I've applied it
Yeah.
before. I'm like, "Oh, I'm here I am, I'm training my body not to sleep in bed. Let me go get my book and read out on the couch or whatever." Um,
Yeah.
well well, Chris, this conversation has been, if anything, relieving for somebody like me who's
I can hear
hyper,
the pressure escaping.
it's yeah,
Yes.
exactly, exactly. I think that's great. When you listen to all these sleep experts like Matthew Walker and all these people, they're great and they give great advice, but it's always like, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's never like, hey, just try less. Like, just enjoy your time
Oh,
in
yeah,
bed.
it's,
Just yeah, just
it
be
was,
there.
Cal Ripken's father, famously said to some player who was in a slump, "You gotta, uh, try easier." He had a great line, like, "Don't try harder, try easier," and yeah,
Yeah,
it's a thing, like, I mean, so there's a reason for expertise, and expertise is great, and Matt's a real sleep scientist. I'm not. I don't consider myself that. I've done some research here and there, but he's a sleep scientist. Like, I'm a clinician. Like, he's the general, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
figuring out the battle plan, then he communicates it to me. I'm on the little radio on the battlefield. Okay, great. Got it. We'll do that. Set our course for this or whatever. And then you go out there and you treat your patients and whatnot. So, the people like Matt are very important because they're doing the research and even somebody like Huberman, like it's fine. It's just it's when Huberman's giving you research and advice on how to deal with your menstrual, your menopausal kind of stuff. I'm like, is that really your lane? Somebody asked me one time to do a TV show, and I was like, I'll do it, but I will only do it for 6 months. And they're like, "No, that won't work." They're like, "Why do you only do it for 6 months?" I said, "'Cause I've only got about 6 months of interesting knowledge in my head, and after that, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, talk about the same stuff again? No, you're gonna be like, "Well, let's do something about gut health." I don't know that much about gut health. Well, here, we can talk about supplements and people who eat other people's poo-poo. Wait, no, you gotta, so at that point, you need somebody else because I don't wanna be like a Dr. Oz, like hawking stuff and doing things because I've got a discrete knowledge base, and beyond that, I'm a liability. So, and so that was it. They were like, "Okay, well, we're gonna go to someone else." I'm like, "Great, because I don't need that in my life." So
Yeah,
anyway, I think that expertise like Matt is great. It just we've gotta take it with a little bit of reality sometimes, and that's not a researcher's job to figure out the reality of a clinical situation. They're sitting in a lab doing this kind of work and interpreting it, and that's fine. We all
yeah.
have our roles to play.
Well, we have a tradition on this podcast where I ask the guests two last questions to wrap up. The first question being, who do you think I should speak to next and why? And then the second is based off of Ralph Waldo Emerson quote: "When we encounter a man of rare intellect, we should ask him what books he reads." What's a book you recommend for me?
Oh,
Give your own book and then a second. For authors, are
yeah,
always allowed to.
yeah. I'm pretty proud of my first book. It's funny. I get away from it for a while, and then I'll pick it up and maybe read a chapter, and I always read it kind of cringing and like, "Oh god, this is gonna be embarrassing, or I'm gonna hate this," and I don't. Like, I'm like, "This is good." Like, and I'm a harsh critic. So, my first book was called The Sleep Solution: Why Your Sleep is Broken and How to Fix It, and, I love it. I think it hit the notes I needed to. There is an unedited version I wanna release sometime because 'cause it's got a lot of
Mm,
humor in it. My editor took a lot of it out and said it was inappropriate for a doctor to be making those kinds of jokes and stuff like that. So one of these days, I'll release that. So, but the book I would recommend that I have always loved is a book called The House of God by Samuel Shem. It was the book that Saint Elsewhere, the TV show, was based on, and I've read it 3 times in my life, and it's all satire, it's sort of farcical, so when you read it, you shouldn't be offended by it, but there's a lot of truth about medicine, and at the end of it, there's something called The Rules of the House of God, and they talk about that a lot. Your wife should read The House of God. You should buy it for
okay.
Valentine's Day. The rules of the House of God are, these kind of comical rules. My favorite was always, "You can't find a fever if you don't take a temperature." So and I use that all the time. And Samuel Shemina both, share a publisher, um, and at the end of my second book, The Rested Child, I made the rules of the House of Nod, and they're in the back of the book, and my publisher didn't wanna put them in there. They're like, "This doesn't make any sense. Why are you putting these in there?" I'm like, "Trust me, just at the end of all the appendices and the glossary, whatever, and the acknowledgement, I want you to put the rules of the House of Nod." And they agreed to do it, but they called it like the rules of the House of Sleep. Like, God
Oh,
damn, you know, like, you can
yeah.
anyway, so those would be my 2 books. And then the next person on your podcast, um, that's a good question. Chris Moore.
Chris Moore?
Chris Moore, Mohr. He is a unbelievably interesting nutrition expert.
Okay.
Really cool guy, really cool experiences, and I'll never forget. I shared a Uber with him one time. We were driving somewhere, and he was like, I said, "You should write a book." He said, I've had about 3 different people come and ask me to write a book." And every time we get to this place, we're like, "What's your hook? What's your crazy, like, only eat foods that start with P," or what it is. And he refuses to do anything gimmicky. And he's like, "I think that my expertise and my recommendations, would be very straightforward and not like that." And nobody wants that, which was such an insight to me. I'm like, if this
Yeah.
dude cannot have his own book or multiple books, it's crazy. And he told me one time, because I told him, I said, my cholesterol is not all that great. He said, "You should eat more beans." I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, just get some beans." I said, "What kind?" He said, "It doesn't even matter." And so for a year, every day at lunch, I ate this package of beans. I just and squirted it out in the bowl and ate it. And my cholesterol went down so much. And I don't want to be like Brian Johnson, like 90% because I wouldn't sauna, but I really didn't change much about my life in that year except for the beans. I
Yeah.
was still exercising the same way. Stress was about the same. So I don't like ends of one, but I tell my patients that I've had 2 other patients over the years say it seemed to help me. And so it's one of
Mm.
those things where you know, Big Bean is probably not. I'm not being paid by Big Bean to tell you that, but I was kind of like, God, that's really great. He said, "Yeah." He
Yeah.
goes, "Beans are a cheap source of good protein, and they just soak up cholesterol."
Mm.
And so there you go. So yeah,
Yeah.
talk to Chris Moore.
I'll definitely reach out to him. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. Where can people get more of you? Where can they find you on Instagram and your podcast and whatnot?
Instagram Dr. like Dr. Chris Winter. I think that's my social media on all platforms. If you type in DrChrisWinter, you'll find me. My podcast is called Sleep Unplugged with Chris Winter. We have episodes every week. The first episode of every month is always about insomnia. And
Mm.
we've got our yearly pillow fight coming out in whenever March Madness Selection Sunday is. That Sunday night we release the pillow fight where we pit 16 pillows against them in a fun competition and like a little bracket and stuff. And yeah, so that's a lot of fun. And yeah, my books are called The Sleep Solution and The Rested Child: Why Your Tired, Wired, or Irritable Child May Have a Sleep Disorder and How to Help. And that's probably
Awesome.
enough.
Well, Chris, thank you again so much for your time.